And welcome. Here we are back again, Gym Teacher Dreams podcast. And for us, it's Thursday, which means it's NBA Thursday. We've got three of our regular panel back, plus one newbie. So Ray, my tag team partner, Coach Beinborn is back. And now we have Steve Jordan, who once again is his second appearance on the show. Now you get to actually see his face. He was with Sophie Bruner last time when we talked about she was in Italy when everything started, and we talked a little bit hoops with those two and what she did. But once again, Steve back, always a baller. All four of us could ball. We can make a team, and let's go. Okay, we would need help. We would need one really, really good person, but we could make a team. So anyway, so today, instead of a tournament, it's similar, but what we've done is we have put together some kind of old school and new school comparisons, and we're going to kind of talk about which one, quote unquote, we would want on our team and, how and why. So without getting started, the first one will be old school is Brandon Roy. For those who don't know, 6'6" guard, played for the Trailblazers. He could score. Unfortunately, what hurt him was injuries. And we'll talk about a little bit more him. And with him is Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal's not as big, 6'3", but once again, the guy who can really score the ball. So Ray, why don't you get us started here? What do you think of Brandon Roy and Bradley Beal?
Well, first I want to give you props for the matchups, and many of them were really good comparisons. So again, nice job by you. I did zero research other than reading the names and identifying them as pretty good matchups. But just in my head and my gut, I feel like I'd rather have Bradley Beal on my team. I don't have a ton of memories of Brandon Roy, and like you said, it's probably because of injuries and whatnot, but Bradley Beal can really fill it up right now, and kind of a local guy, from the St. Louis area, if I remember correctly, and if all things are equal, I'm going to lean towards someone that has local ties.
Okay, how about you, Steve?
Yeah, I got to go with Bradley Beal on this one. I mean, just looking up a little bit, I remember Brandon Roy, same as what Ray said. He just doesn't stick out in your memory like Bradley Beal does, and I feel like Bradley Beal's kind of a dude too. I think he'd stick up for you if you needed it. So I'll go with Bradley Beal for sure.
Mark, what do you got?
Well, my only question would be: does injuries, the fact that we know about their injuries, factor in?
No, we're saying if heyday, healthy Brandon Roy versus Bradley Beal.
Okay, with that, I'm gonna go with Brandon Roy, and I think the main thing is him before the injuries set in. I think what he did, the impact he had on the franchise, and helping them win, is a major factor for me, because in the time of John Wall, Bradley Beal in Washington, I have not seen it translate into anything beyond getting into the playoffs. Have they made it past the first round? I feel like they been knocked out in the first round every year. Remove John Wall with injury, team still, and I think Bradley Beal is a phenomenal player, but I think winning always matters. And sometimes with great players, they're able to lift their team up a little bit into more success. And I with the Wizards and with Beal and John Wall's time, I've seen nothing but, to me, playoff disappointments, and I think that's the major factor for me.
Yeah, definitely. Bradley Beal has become an elite scorer right now in the league. I mean, he was averaging 30 points this year. I too am going to go Brandon Roy. And one of the things that, as I was doing my research, was MJ. MJ once said that one of the toughest players, or the toughest player that he had to guard, was Brandon Roy. Because he could, he was a decent three-point shooter. He wasn't a great. I think he was about 35%. But he was really good in the mid-range. He could post you up in that mid-post and then shoot the fadeaway. He could get to the rim. Like I said, unfortunately, injuries really hurt him in terms of, some people know him, but back in the day, he could really score and he could defend as well. So he was pretty. So we're 2-2 to start with, just the way we like it. But as I said, Bradley Beal could score. But I do too. I think Brandon Roy, if he didn't have the injury problems, he's a Hall of Famer, I think, because, like I said, what he did for the franchise, and he could really score. I mean, they were talking
Rookie of the Year, two-time All-NBA selection.
Yeah, right. And like I said, unfortunately, he only played 326 games, So that's, you do your math, that, that's only 3-4 seasons, but he was really good when he was there. So there we go. Just the way we started, 2-2, baby. Okay, rock, paper, scissors, but we'll move on. So the next one that we have is, I really like this. This is one of my favorites here. Rasheed Wallace, old school, 6'10", played with a bunch of teams, versus LaMarcus Aldridge, 6'11". So, Steve, go ahead and start us off with this matchup or comparison.
I remember watching a Bulls game several years ago, and LaMarcus Aldridge had 24 in the first quarter.
Oh,
So, I think the Bulls drafted him, if I'm not mistaken,
you're right.
and traded him along a kid from LSU. I can't think of the name right now. But yeah, LaMarcus Aldridge had a great career with the Spurs now. When they had the issues with Kawhi Leonard a couple years ago, I know that Popovich really stood behind LaMarcus Aldridge and just really backed him. And some of the words that he had to say about LaMarcus Aldridge really made me think that not only was he one of those guys that could put the stats up, but he's also one of the guys that you want on your team. So I'm going to go with LaMarcus Aldridge. Also, Rasheed, a little crazy. Sometimes you need a little crazy on your team, but from a reliability standpoint, I think LaMarcus Aldridge.
And before we move on to Mark, you were talking about Tyrus Thomas, correct? I do believe.
Tyrus Thomas.
Yeah.
Out of LSU, yeah.
Yep. So, Mark, how about you?
This one was hard because I think gut is Rasheed, because I love Rasheed, and I think he clearly played on, again, the winning factor to me. I think you look at the San Antonio Spurs, and I know it's not LaMarcus's fault, but that franchise has been one of the top for 2 decades. And now that once he became the guy, they're almost, you don't see it. They're not on TV anymore. They're not winning the same. But I think there's a lot more that goes into it. Once I looked up statistically, you can't even, I don't think you can even argue that LaMarcus has led in every category, scores more, rebounds more. Again, what part of that has to do with the teams they were on? Sometimes when you're the best player on a bad team, you can have great stats that don't equal that as you jump to a different team, you might have a little bit less numbers and win more because you have better players around you. I don't think either one of them are that guy you want to start a team with. And I think that's the hard part. But I think LaMarcus is solid. He's very consistent. And I just think it's been a factor of who he's been around, who has been around him, that you don't hear about that translating into big playoff runs and so on. So I'm not going to blame that on him. I'm going to go with the stats for once and go with LaMarcus on this one.
Okay. I think, both of them, once again, we think about Rasheed Wallace, and Rasheed Wallace, when he got older, didn't look as athletic as he was when he was younger. I'm going to go with Wallace. So once again, that Aldridge, he's going to put up that 18 to 20 to 10 every time. But Rasheed, back in when he was a youth and young, he was really, super athletic, run the court, he'd shoot the three. Defensively, I think he's better in Aldridge. And yes, you have to deal with what, a little bit of his mentality is his anger, but yet, I like kids that played with a little edge. It would be nice if he control a little better, but he played 14 seasons. Once again, Aldridge was an MVP. Was an all-star, an MVP, all NBA more than what Rasheed. But I like Rasheed just because, once again, I just thought he was a little more better defensively, and he could still score. So Ray, what do you got?
A little more better.
Yeah, I know it. I was rolling there.
That comes from the U.
That's right.
Just so you know.
Savannah.
And Savannah. Yeah, bad combo according
That
to
is quite the combo. You know what? I was picking LaMarcus Aldridge, and like I said, I did no research, but I was using Steve and Mark as my research, and hard argument really. All three of you sort of brought up, that Rasheed, he's I don't know if the X factor is the right word, but he's like a guy that you do want on one of those kind of good teams. But, I'm just I'm going stats and offensive stats and talent over, fit. And, I wasn't thinking composing a championship team. There's certainly reasons to have Rashid on your team, but I'm going with Marcus Aldridge. But Mark, I got to ask you, is that like the quarantine beard, or do you normally go with a beard or goatee?
No, I've always had a goatee, but it's usually thin and I keep it trimmed. And this is quarantine. I was like, why not? It's the only time I will. Every Zoom meeting we have with the recruit, I'm prepared to apologize and say, okay, I normally am not. But, I think everybody understands right now in quarantine. Yep. The grooming's a little bit different for most of us.
One more thing to add on the Rashid. I know that Chauncey Billups said he had the best horse shot. I don't know if you guys watched the horse competition on ESPN a couple weeks ago, but Rashid could take 2 balls, one in each hand from 3-point range and shoot them at the same time, and both of them go in.
Wow, that is
Chauncey
impressive.
Billups said it was the best horse shot he ever saw.
Better than my death shot. Whenever I'd play kids, my death shot was banking the free throw in to finish
Bank free
them off.
throw?
Yep, and then if they made that, then I would bank the wing 3-pointers. The bank. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to skip the next one because that one's going to be our last one here. So we're going to go Anthony Mason. So this one's a little bit interesting because they're kind of big bodied, but necessarily not the same type of player versus Julius Randle. So Mark, it's your turn to start.
Okay. I'm going with Julius Randle on this one. And this was also tough because I think part of when you're talking about role players, comparing old school role players with modern day role players, Anthony Mason, I would take Anthony Mason in the 80s. If this was the 80s, I would take Anthony Mason because you're allowed to do things that now would be a flagrant and then would have just been a normal foul and you play on. And Julius does not have that same DNA and most people don't, that Anthony Mason had. But I think that, you look at Anthony Mason, for a big man, had handles in our eyes back then. But when you look at him now, his handles were still pretty basic. It just was different to see a guy with that kind of size and muscular build to go down. That's an enforcer that dribbles and passes so well. But I think Julius is just more skilled than he is. He's still a big body. He's strong. He's athletic. And I think he brings more to the table offensively.
Yeah, this one's difficult for me, but I kind of lean toward Julius Randle. What you said, I really like what Anthony Mason did for his team. And like you said, in that era, he provided something that, that was definitely needed, and fit that team, obviously. Yeah, right. Which one thing about coaching, when you talk about Pat Riley, maybe he didn't start the Showtime Lakers, but for him to be able to, win championships with Showtime Lakers and then go to New York and be this physical, beast, it's pretty impressive there just to throw something at him. But anyway, Julius Randle, I think last couple of years he's really shown that the type of player that he is. He's going to give you those, those 18 to 10 a night. Like I said, I like to see him be a little more physical, a little more defensive minded, but he definitely can get your boards and get so. Ray,
throw it over to me. I missed you.
Yeah, you froze up, dude.
Yeah, I know.
We're all worried.
Okay, I'm ready.
Who's up?
Ray, go ahead.
Ray. All right, Ray.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. It is going to be challenging. I feel like, I don't know if it was last week or, we've talked about, different tournaments and matchups come up where they're from different eras, and it's challenging. But, I'm going to lean towards the athleticism here and Julius Randle. I guess maybe a different kind of athleticism, but yeah, you guys have both brought up everything that I would have said. I go Julius Randle on this.
Steve?
I'm going the other way. I just can't. I can't go with Julius Randle with the small sample size thus far. I don't see it in his eyes either when I watch him play. He looks to me like one of those guys that's kind of aloof, maybe a stat guy. I just don't think he's a guy I want to count on my team. Whereas on the flip side, Anthony Mason, that's a guy I'd want to go to battle with. So call me in 3 years. Otherwise, I got nothing for Julius Randle.
Ray, this is one where I could have been swayed, because I was really close, Mason. So just, with the case, I could have switched. Mark, did you have something to add with this one?
Yeah, I'm the same way. And I with what you said, that's the thing. I am not a Julius Randle fan. I I probably would change my mind. I just I don't think that the 3 years, 5 years is going to make a difference. He's been in the league. He does what he does. And again, winning is the most important thing to me. And no matter what, I think you can find a place for Anthony Mason because he's going to help you win. So you swayed me. I'm gonna go with Anthony Mason.
Me too. Just as also.
Oh my goodness.
I was really close anyway. I was just kind of waiting to get a better thing. But the thing, with Randall is the same. If you're good, you're not going to be on 3 teams in 4 years, 5 years, or whatever the case may be. We talked about that last week. So yeah, I was easily swayed too. So Ray, how about you?
I'm not moving. Sorry.
Ray doesn't move.
Attaboy. I like it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm thinking about like building that team in the modern era, in old school basketball. And Mark, you mentioned this a little bit ago. It's kind of gone,
Yeah.
So I mean, I liked Anthony Mason. Once I could separate the rivalry, the Bulls Knicks back in the day. But because he played basketball a little bit like a football player, and but it doesn't really translate to current era. I don't think. So I'm not moving. Sorry.
I'm with you. I think I get that, the translation. I'm going to teach him to play physical without fouling. More of this, less of this.
Yeah.
Because he's still a very physical body. So I think he can learn to adjust and not just swing on everybody, follow through like this, and because he could get away with it. So I think we could teach him how to do that.
All right. So I'm going to actually introduce him a little differently. So that next one is a fun one. Okay, you got a Hall of Famer, 5-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA, which is Reggie Miller, versus an All-Rookie, 2-time All-NBA, 5-time All-Star, 3-time champion, 1-time All-Star, MVP, Klay Thompson. So Steve, who do you got in this matchup?
This was a tough one. This was one of my favorites.
These are both probably in my top 10. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. In the end, I got to go with Klay Thompson. I mean, the way just watching him play, he just excites me. He plays on both ends of the court. He's always ready to shoot. He plays his role well. When KD went down, he stepped up. Never heard him complain at all. He just seems like a gamer. So. Reggie Miller, again, I think some of it is the Bulls rivalry, going back to the mid 90s.
Your heart, right?
Yeah, I know. Vote for Reggie, I love the guy. But I just can't go against Klay Thompson, especially in today's day and age.
Your words here, but I go Reggie Miller on this one. Reggie would adapt. He's one of those kind of players that would adapt, and I loved Reggie Miller. If he wasn't on the Bulls during that run, he was like the guy that I loved. He's relentless. He kind of had that thing that Jordan had, where it wasn't about winning; it was about I'm not going to lose. And there's just so much that I really love, and taking nothing away from Klay Thompson. He's great. Also, he would be on many teams that I would construct, but Reggie Miller is going to be like at the top of my list on any team that I would construct. I go Reggie Miller in this one.
All right, Mark.
I'm going with Klay Thompson, and this one's tough because again, same as what you guys were saying. I love Reggie. You watch what Reggie did. And he's one of those guys in the 90s that looked at Mike and didn't care that he was Mike, and probably played better in those games than he did in any other game. I think that, I don't know if any of you watched the 98 All-Star game last night when they aired it, but I made the boys come and watch it. They're like, well, it's an All-Star game. I'm like, no. All-Star games then, yes, they scored a lot, but they competed. It wasn't just, let's let them go down and throw alley-oops every possession, which I hope the young players watching the NBA or that are in the league now watch that game and bring some kind of competitive spirit back to the NBA All-Star Weekend, because they got after each other. They did not want to get scored on. They still defended. Mutombo was still going to take somebody out and not let him score. Brought Shaq down on a potential dunk. And he's like, no, you're not scoring on me. They had something then, and Reggie had that fire as much as anybody. But Klay is 6'8". He is one of the best wing defenders that can defend multiple positions that I think we've seen. And he does it all without needing any. He doesn't make a lot of noise. He scored whatever it was in that one game, 50-some, close to 60, whatever, and had the ball in his hands 90 seconds and took, 4 or 5 dribbles.
Correct.
Like, that's unbelievable.
What?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
90 seconds is the total time he had possession of the ball throughout
Love
that
it.
game.
Love it.
And who else can do something like that? Nobody else ever had. Now,
Or would.
right. And I think it's that he's an underrated passer. I think that washes, but the defensive end is what's going to make the difference as well for me in that matchup.
Yeah, I love Reggie, but I picked Klay Thompson. What everyone said, there ain't nothing better than an offense for me, because I love the Princeton and the Chin series, is watching Steph and Klay run a split screen.
Yeah.
What do you do? I mean, that if you want to draw it up, you put those two together to run a split screen, with ball at the high post and Draymond's. Whew, that gives me goosebumps. That is for sure. So I picked Klay mostly once again because of the defense, and that's mainly it. Yeah, but Reggie, you're right. Reggie's mentality, he had no fear, and he grew up getting his butt whooped by his sister, and heard that forever and ever. So for him to find get his name out there, he's the type of guy that he was. But I am picking Klay. I think if he was on a different team, he's scoring 25, 30 points a game easily. And like I said, his defense is much better than everyone else. Ray.
Yeah, that 30 for 30 on Reggie Miller, if you've seen it. I just love it. That night, he was a sophomore in high school, and he scored 40 in a game.
Yeah.
He was so excited. He came home, and sister's in the car. She's smiling. He goes, What'd you have? I had 85, or something like that.
Yes, that was great. And I actually read Reggie Miller's book, and some of the things that he talked about. So yeah, but I went Klay. All right, the next one is we've got all rookie and a 5-time All-Star and a 5-time All-NBA, Amari Stoudemire, versus all rookie of the year, 6-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA, Blake Griffin. And I do believe it's Mark's turn to start this one.
I am going to go with Amari on this. And again, it's because injuries don't matter. We already established that. Amari, I don't know if anybody, because of what happened and because of the Knicks, I mean, again, once you went to the Knicks at that point, just like most people going to the Clippers anytime up until the last 5 years or whatever, it was just you're doomed to not being seen much. Not a good team. Franchise was in bad shape. But you take Amari at his best, and he was more than just a dunker. He was a great defender, great rebounder, a double-double guy. I think he had a toughness and ability to step out, put the ball on the floor. I just, again, the toughness. I think Blake gives you a lot of great highlights. I think his game evolved enough. But again, I don't think he's ever been, and he's proven that he's not that guy that you can trust to take you to where you want to go. He can be a piece. He can be exciting. He's added excitement to a franchise, but he's never translating that to he's a winner. I think he's whined more than, about certain things and little things. And again, forget injuries for him as well, because I think that clearly can be a factor. But I just think Amari was such a tough competitor, great on both ends, did everything to help your team win.
Yeah, Blake was really good on the roast, Comedy Central roast.
He did great.
He was great on that. But I'm also going to Amari. He was just nasty when he wasn't injured, just could do a lot of things. And so they're both very similar. I think Blake, is a good passer, but he's one of those two does he really get after it when he need to? And that's a concern where, and that's why main reason why I picked Amari. Once again, they're both super athletic, highlight films all the time, but I went with Amari. How about you, Ray?
Same thing, Amari Stoudemire. Blake certainly has outstanding athleticism and for his size. But again, the it factor, Mark had mentioned before about, sometimes you're the guy on a bad team and then your stats are inflated. I feel like Blake's sort of an example of that. What has he won? What has he done? How far has he advanced? How far have teams he's been on advanced in playoffs? I did give him bonus points, like you said, for the roast. And he did a roast battle with someone, kind of like the offshoot of the celebrity roast, which, I've been into recently, and he does a real nice job with that. But they hit him hard for some of the things that we've mentioned also. So it's funny to watch that side of it. But yeah, Amari Stoudemire, just he more of a winner, I would say. He brings everything to the table that Blake does, but he has sort of that it factor also. So I'm Amari Stoudemire.
Steve?
Yep, not much more to add. You guys pretty much said it. I don't trust Blake Griffin as far as I can throw him, so go with Amari.
How far do you think you could throw him?
Not very far.
All right, and our last one before we take a break here, our matchup, we've got Joe Johnson, all rookie, 7-time All-Star, all NBA one time, versus Mitch Richmond, all rookie, rookie of the year, Hall of Famer, All-Star MVP, 6-time All-Stars, 5-time All-NBA, and an NBA champ. So I am leading off, and I'm taking Mitch Richmond. Joe was one of the, once again, Joe could get buckets. Joe could get buckets for you, but Mitch Richmond he could score, and he was fun to watch when they was with him, when he was on with Mullen and Tim Hardaway. A guy who, once again, was well-rounded, could shoot the ball, could get to the rim, nice mid-range game. So I'm picking Mitch Richmond. I like him a lot. Ray?
I agree. I feel like Joe Johnson's sort of like that. I don't know, secondary person, third person on a good team, but I feel like Mitch is more of a figurehead. And I know you gave the example when he was part of a three-headed monster, but I just feel like he's more of a focal point of a team, whereas Joe is sort of like an additional piece to it. I don't have the right word for it. And I feel like in one of our previous NBA, talks, somebody had said that Joe Johnson a little bit overrated as well. I kind of agree with that, to a certain extent. I wouldn't mind having him. There was talk 70 years ago, whatever, of him maybe joining the Bulls, and it would have been a nice addition. I would have been all in favor of it. But in this matchup here, I just think that Mitch Richmond's more of a focal point of your team. I'm going Mitch Richmond.
Steve?
Yeah, this one's easy. This is Mitch. No doubt.
So this was one of the biggest, if not the biggest difference. Mark, what do you got?
Yep.
I'm going with Mitch too. I think that you look at statistically, they were about equal in rebounds, assists. But when it comes to points, everybody always remembers Joe Johnson as being a scorer. And yeah, he averaged 16 points a game in his career. And it's not with a lack of trying. His field goal percentage is a big difference when you look at them. And he was, I think, I can actually tell you, I had it up, low 40s, 42.7%, Mitch Richmond, 47.9. And I think that, Mitch wasn't a great three-point shooter, but the thing is he was great from his foot on the line in. He shot a lot of long twos, which a lot of coaches consider an awful shot, but he did not miss from long twos, literally feet on the line. Again, All-Star game last night, he hit like 4 straight, and I'm pointing out to my boys, like, look, his foot is on the line in every one of those, but he stepped behind the line and he was a 30% three-point shooter for his career. So go ahead and keep taking long twos. He did not miss those. He was better in the playoffs. He just, again, he's a winner. I think Joe was overrated. I think he was good in moments and had some big moments that were memorable. but Mitch had a better career and translated into a lot more winning and a lot more success.
All right, sounds good.